Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. Can we take a few minutes to talk about Donald Trump's First Amendment fail? Recently, Twitter has decided to add a fact-checking feature to the end of some of Donald Trump's tweets. Frankly, it's about time, because up until now, Donald Trump has been using Twitter as basically his unfettered propaganda machine. So after a recent tweet where Donald Trump was, railing against mailed-in ballots, it's going to allow for voter fraud and it's going to result in a rigged election, Twitter, pretty discreetly, added to the bottom of that tweet, "Get the facts about mail-in ballots here." It's not as if Twitter, dropped one of those big fingers at the bottom of the tweet pointing up to what Donald Trump had just said and asserting, Donald Trump is full of malarkey. All Twitter did was put a fact-checking link at the bottom of the tweet where people could go if they wanted some factual, accurate reporting about mailed-in ballots. This did not sit well with Donald Trump, and he started screaming, and sometimes in all caps, in subsequent tweets about how Twitter was stifling his freedom of speech and vowing to shut down social media. I don't think anybody can accuse Donald Trump of being a student of the Constitution. I wonder whether he can spell the word Constitution. It would probably go something like, C-O-N institution. He would probably get the C-O-N part right for obvious reasons. But let's take a look at the First Amendment, what it says, then let's talk about what it means, and let's see how it applies to some of Donald Trump's recent tweets. So first of all, the First Amendment to the Constitution reads as follows: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It kind of sings, right? What does the First Amendment mean? You may have heard two people arguing, and one person tries to shut down the argument of another, and that second person says, "Hey, you can't shut my argument down. I have my First Amendment freedom of speech." And, maybe you do, maybe you don't. It depends on who's trying to shut you down. Because the First Amendment prohibition against abridging the freedom of speech, shutting down free speech, only applies to the government. If the government tries to shut down free speech, that would violate the First Amendment to the Constitution. If Twitter tried to shut down or regulate free speech, that ain't a First Amendment violation, because Twitter is not the government. The First Amendment prohibition doesn't apply to Twitter. It only applies to governmental conduct designed or aimed at abridging the freedom of speech, shutting down free speech. Let's look at a couple of Donald Trump's tweets that he sent after Twitter started to put the fact-checking feature at the bottom of some of his tweets. Here's what Donald Trump said. He tweeted out, "Twitter is now interfering in the 2020 presidential election. They are saying my statement on mailed-in ballots, which lead to massive corruption and fraud, is incorrect based on fact-checking by fake news, CNN, and the Amazon Washington Post. Twitter is completely stifling free speech, and I, as president, will not allow it to happen." He then went on in a subsequent tweet. "Republicans feel that social media platforms totally silence conservative voices. We will strongly regulate or close them down before we can ever allow this to happen." So, Donald Trump obviously has a fundamental misunderstanding of the meaning of the First Amendment. Why? Because he says things like, Twitter is stifling my free speech, violating my First Amendment right to speak freely, when we know the First Amendment doesn't apply to Twitter, even if it is trying to abridge someone's speech. Then he goes on to demonstrate a further misunderstanding of the First Amendment, because Donald Trump, when he doesn't like what Twitter is doing, when he doesn't like the speech of others, says, I will shut it down, which would be a direct, inarguable violation of the First Amendment prohibition against the government abridging or shutting down free speech. You know, we'll see where this goes from here. I hope Twitter continues to put a fact-checking feature in Donald Trump's tweets, because what a president doesn't have the right to do is poison the American discourse with unfettered, unchecked, flat-out lies. So let's hope Twitter keeps doing it. Let's hope somebody pulls the president aside and gives him a quick tutorial on the ins and outs of the First Amendment. And let's hope that we begin to see the tide turning, because I think we can all be encouraged that Donald Trump's unfettered propaganda machine will now hopefully not go unchecked. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please stay coronavirus free, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.